we're not talking about, $1 million price point. We're talking about $8 million, $10 million price point.
The guy that's spending $20 million on a house, it's just another asset in his portfolio.
Right.
So
Looking for that trophy.
Yeah, so it just comes down to emotion. One thing I've always learned is if people like something, they're gonna buy it. They're gonna go after it.
Right.
If people like you, they're gonna buy from you. You get that whether you're buying a $20 million house and selling a $20 million house or a $500,000 house, you get the same Jason. There is no I'm better than you. I sold 30 million. You sold 2 million. I sold 50 million. It's all, hey, I sold 50. How can I get you to 50?
Because we're not really selling a house, we're selling a lifestyle.
Selling a life of hospitality. If I had to go back and tell myself one thing, it would be invest in yourself.
Hello, RWorld. Welcome back to another episode of RWorld Talk. We got a special treat for you this morning. We're going to talk about luxury real estate on a non-traditional path to it with Mr. Jason Sims from Serhant. How are you, sir?
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm great. Drove up from Miami, so wasn't a terrible ride.
No, we're gonna move this podcast studio a little bit closer down south, so that way our Miami friends don't have as far to drive as I do in the morning when I come up here to do these things.
I love Palm Beach. I mean, eventually I'm going to relocate here with my family, so
Okay.
that's definitely in the plan.
A little slower pace.
Just a better place to raise a family.
Okay.
Well,
we're going to talk about. It's funny because before getting to know you off camera, not realizing that you really started off in sort of the same industry that I did. I was in Toronto for a number of years in the bar and restaurant industry. So you had 15 years in wine and spirits distribution, years in the restaurant and nightclub scene. Good friend of Gus Rennie that we were talking about off camera. That's where you guys got to get real close. Let's talk about how that skill set in that industry really translated into how you're working a luxury residential market with Serhant.
it's hospitality, right? So for us, it's more about giving the client what they need. It's about servicing an experience. So a typical realtor is like, hey, nice to meet you. Let me show you around. And, this is the house. You got 4 bedrooms, 5 bathrooms,
Right.
something like that. For me, I've always been the hospitality guy. So it's making somebody feel welcome, making somebody feel like this is their home already.
Sure.
This is what the house is going to bring to you. And it's just a hospitality background, it says it, be
Well,
nice, be hospitable.
Yeah, be hospitable. Listen to their needs first.
Right.
And then let's talk about how that house is going to suit exactly what they're looking for.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then obviously knowing your client, so it's knowing what they need out of that hospitality. They got kids, so great. There's a bunch of playgrounds nearby. The schools are great. This is that,
Right.
So
They only like Chopin vodka. They don't want no Tito's.
yeah. Or Grey Goose.
Yeah, or Grey Goose. There you go. So to really, let's expand on that. You're in high performance luxury real estate. We're not talking about $1 million price point. We're talking about $8 million, $10 million price point.
Hand up.
What's the difference between? I mean, I came from a market where now I'm a broker here in South Florida, and I really only deal in waterfront homes. I've sort of been in that boating community. I'm a fisher. I know what people want when it comes to waterfront. When it comes to $8 million, $10 million, $25 million properties, Miami, West Palm Beach, and everywhere in between. What is it that you learned in your previous life that has really given you that skill set that you're able to connect with people on that level that are spending that kind of money?
I think there's a difference, right? The guy that's spending $1 million and the guy that's spending 20 million is emotion, right? The guy that's spending $1 million, it's $1 million, right?
Yeah.
That's a big number for somebody. So being compassionate about that, this is a huge purchase for somebody, right?
Yeah.
The guy that's spending $20 million on a house, it's just another asset in his portfolio.
Right.
So
Looking for that trophy.
yeah, so it just comes down to emotion. And, one thing I've always learned is if people like something, they're going to buy it. They're going to go after it. Right. If people like you, they're gonna buy from you. So, for me, it's about that emotion, understanding that emotion about the buyer and being able to differentiate the 1 million, the 8 million, the $20 million emotional aspect to that buyer.
Okay. And that kind of clientele, where are we meeting those people? Is it your networking groups? I mean, where are those buyers coming from,
Yeah. So
or those sellers?
so I'm fortunate enough that I work a lot on referrals, right? So
Okay.
my salesmanship, my personality, my general being has given me the good fortune of being a referral for a lot of people.
It only takes one to get started.
It takes one to get started.
Yeah.
I'm not. Social media is very important, right? Ryan Serhant, who's my idol, my mentor.
Sure.
He built his career on social media. The TV shows help, but if you see his social platform, it's huge. So, one thing he says is post often and do it to the best of your ability and be natural. So for me, it's not about the like house tour, like here, I'm opening a door and this is the house tour. It's more about let me be me on social
Right.
media. Everybody who follows me knows that I'm a realtor, right? So it's not about like, well, oh, I see this house. Let me buy that house. It's about, oh, I see Jason. I know he's a realtor. I'm out for dinner with my friend and they're like, hey, I'm looking for a new house. Oh, you know what? Call my buddy Jason. He's a realtor.
Right.
So they see me, they know that I'm a realtor, and it's just about me being authentic and natural.
Yeah, my good buddy Ron Lennon, he's one of our past presidents at the association, and he first got into real estate, ended up having $1 million buyer, and never since day one has he sold a property that was less than $1 million. It was just referral from one person to the next, to the next, to the next, and now he's doing $30 million beachfront property.
For me, I'll do the sale that's 500,000. I'll do the sale that's 800,000. I have a couple listings now that's a friend's grandmother. I just sold a house for 515,000. It was one of the first sales I did
Yeah,
6 years ago when I came into real estate full time that I sold for 350,000. Guy made a nice little penny off of it in the years that he has it. But of course I was going to resell it for
right.
somebody. And I don't differentiate the people based on their money they're going to spend or what I'm going to sell. Everybody gets the same attention from me.
Sure.
If you
As they
tell me
should.
if you tell me to be somewhere at 6 o'clock, I'm going to be there at 5:45, and I'm going to wait till 6 before I ring the doorbell. You get that whether you're buying a $20 million house, I'm
Yeah.
selling a $20 million house, or a $500,000 house. You get the same Jason.
I think this is a good point, and I don't know if I've told the story on this podcast before, but one of my agents, shout out to Kate Stout, she had a girl that she had met that was looking for a really, really cheap condo to rent. She wanted to be as close to the beach as possible, but it was just a little condo, and she showed this girl so many properties and gave her so much time in order to get her into this like very, very cheap rental. We're $1,200 a month kind of thing, like years ago. And as it turns out, she was the first one of the family to come down and move to South Florida. And then mom came down and bought $1 million property. Then grandma came down and bought a multi-million-dollar property. And she's had a great business just from that cheap little rental that she did, but gave that girl the same amount of care that she would have given to mom or grandma that were spending big money on their properties.
Right. So going back to hospitality, right?
Yeah.
So when I was a general manager and I was, working my way up in the career and I became a manager, you have a busboy, you have a barback, you have a dishwasher. I treat them all the same. You want to know why? Because now, 25 years later, that busboy, that general manager, that busboy is now the general manager.
Right.
So that $1,200 rental you do for a girl out of college, well, one day she's going to get a real job. She's going to remember the service you gave her, and now she's going to want to buy her next house.
Yeah.
So you never know where somebody's going to wind up. You
Yeah.
never know what somebody's going to lead you into. And, if you give everybody the same level of service, you're going to win at the end.
Absolutely. Same level of service, same level of respect, regardless of what price point you're at.
Yep.
Let's talk about you were the Serhant brand. You must be a dead person if you don't know who Ryan Serhant is. Ryan, if you're listening, Jason's here. You're next in the chair. But what drew you to the Serhant brand?
So a real quick story, right? So I got my license 12 years ago. I was in the hospitality business. I was in the wine and spirits business, and I wanted to be like Ryan. I was watching $1 Million Listing, and I said,
Yeah.
"Hey, I can do this. I can speak like him. Feel like I'm a good looking guy. I can kind of make it happen." You can't. You can't do it. You can't do real estate part-time.
Yeah,
It doesn't work. You need to
absolutely
be
not.
in it to win it. So I had my license. It was hung at a boutique brokerage, a very well-known boutique brokerage. And during COVID, I was offered the opportunity to take a package and leave. I was on furlough, and they said, "Hey, listen, we don't know what's going to happen when things come back. We'll give you a nice package now, and you can kind of formally move out of the business." And I said, "You know what? I'm going to do that."
Okay.
Um, I stayed at the brokerage that I was at, and Ryan had come out with the book "Sell It Like Serhant." So I'll never forget this. I'm with my wife. We're at the Standard. This is before kids. We had just gotten married, and I'm reading the book, and I look at her and I said, one day if this guy ever comes to Miami, I want to be his guy. I want to be his guy if this guy ever comes to Miami. A few years later, I got a phone call from Yasser Pont. Yasser, if you're watching. Um, which was his vice president of sales, saying, "Hey, we notice what you're doing in real estate. How would you like to come to Serhant?" I was like, yes, I'm there. I'm on the plane. When can I come?" I,
You're really
uh,
playing hard to get.
it was a manifestation. It was a dream come true,
Sure.
and I got there.
Let me stop you there. How did they find you? I mean, was
So
it what you were doing on social media?
So it was through the listings that I had and some of the sales that I had. They were
Okay.
actively recruiting agents that were doing some big things.
Okay.
So as I got out of the business, I had some really good referral sources that gave me gave me a meal ticket to some big listings. So
Okay.
that's how he found me. He saw that I was doing some big things and was building a team down here. I was the 10th hire. I'm one of the founders of the Miami brokerage. Um, and he's incredible. So the guy that you see on TV is the guy that he is in real life. His energy, his passion, his love, everything. That's the same guy.
Sure.
And what I saw that he was building was the brokerage of the future. It was a different type of brokerage model coming from the boutique, old school place where I was. It was one of those brokerages where if you're at an event for the company, everyone's like, "How much did you sell? How much did you sell?" "Oh, that's it. That's it." At Serhant, we have an expression. We call it Surfam. We're the
Okay.
Serhant family, right? We're on a group chat of all 70 agents now in Miami, and we have, "Hey, we're having an open house." Everyone's like, "I'm going to come support you. I may have a buyer. How can I help you?
That's
Hey,
awesome.
Jay, can I come shoot some content at your listing?" Absolutely. We're the Serhant family. We all work together. There is no "I'm better than you. I sold 30 million. You sold 2 million. I sold 50 million." It's all, "Hey, I sold 50. How can I get you to 50?" And that's what Ryan is about. He's about building the agent for the future and helping you be the best you can be. Not to mention his tech stack is incredible. We've rolled out things like Simple, which is an AI tool to basically save you time. Things that was realtors had to do with the minutia of like building comp reports, building listing packages, building all these tools that would take you time.
Yeah.
I go onto my phone, I can speak. I say, "Hey, I need a listing presentation for 815 Northeast 76th Street. Please put relevant comps, between X, Y, and Z, and put some photos from the MLS on there, and make sure you update my bio picture." In the next 24 hours, I have a print ready, email ready presentation to hand to somebody.
And you're calling a marketing department, or you're talking AI on
I'm
it?
not talking to anybody. I'm speaking into an app. So it's called Simple.
Okay.
And basically that's what it is. It makes being a realtor kind of simple.
Okay.
You know, it's an AI generated AI platform model. So
So let's talk about you obviously everybody in South Florida deals with relocations. I mean, we've got people from all over the country that are constantly coming down here. Um, and it's so funny because sometimes people say, "I want to be in South Florida." It's like, okay, well, where in South Florida? Are we talking Miami? Are we talking the Keys? Are we talking West Palm, St. Lucie? Where? Yeah, all of that. Like, basically impossible for one person to service, that entire area. But as far as relocation buyers are concerned, what do they need that local buyers typically don't need? Obviously, uh, they need help dialing down where in the hell they want to be in South Florida. But besides that, what sort of opportunities do you feel like you have when you're dealing with a relocation buyer that you could actually just kill that presentation?
So for me, I have an advantage that I've lived in West Palm Beach,
Yeah.
I've lived in Fort Lauderdale, and I've lived in several places in Miami. So I can speak pretty well to all three counties,
Right.
right? So for me, when I'm working with a buyer, especially an out of town relocation client, which is something I like to specialize in, right?
Okay.
Takes me back to my hospitality days,
Yeah.
right? Well, what do you need to be a local as a foreigner, so to speak, right?
Right.
So I interview my buyers, what do you like to do? What are your hobbies? What are your passions? What do you need in a house? You have kids, private school, public school. What do you look for in a school? And if they're open because they don't necessarily need to live in Miami, they don't need to live in Palm Beach, I can take and dissect their answers and put them in the best place.
Public
For
school, I'm sending you to Jacksonville.
Right, good point. But, and I'm gonna bring this back to simple real quick. So I actually helped develop, something we call the area atlas, right? So I'll plug in an address, and it'll then make me a beautiful, diagram of everything they need that's relevant to their house.
Okay.
So, Italian's your favorite. Well, listen, I love Italian food. This is the best Italian. This is 1.2 miles from your house.
Sure.
You love shopping? What kind of shopping? You luxury retail? Great. Well, Bal Harbor Shops is only 2.5 miles from your house.
Right.
So we put this thing together that's like, here's a roadmap to everything you need living in your house. So I
Yeah,
like
because we're not really selling a house, we're selling a lifestyle.
selling a life hospitality,
Yeah.
right? So for me, I like somebody to be able to move into that house and feel like they're already a local resident. They're
Right.
not moving in going, "Where's the nearest dry cleaner?" Well, I already told you the nearest dry cleaner is 1.2 miles away. It's on Second Avenue.
Yeah.
So
And let me know when
they
you're going to
have,
Martirano's because I want an invite.
their meatballs are the best.
Yeah.
So, it's important to me that I give that client everything they need to make an educated decision
Sure.
where to put their home, where to put their lifestyle, where to
Right.
put their family,
Right.
you know?
What do you feel is your number one sort of number one need that you get from a relocation buyer outside from, obviously where do you like to shop, where do you like to eat, all that kind of stuff? What are people really looking for when they're coming down to South Florida? They're coming from Connecticut. I mean, what is that person looking for? Are they looking for close to the beach, close to the, is it waterfront? Is it, what is it specifically?
Well, if you're coming from New York, you're looking to get away from traffic, that's what.
That's why I came here.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And then, so depending on where you live, there could be a lot of traffic. So you tell me like, "Hey, I'm moving from New York." Well, what's your commute to work now like? "Oh, it takes me an hour each way and traffic, it's terrible." Okay, well, you're moving down here for a job. Where is that job? Let's try to put you in an area that's not going to take you an hour to get there. It's only going
Right.
to take you 25 minutes, and that's
Yeah,
kind of it.
that's a big misconception for people when they come down here that they look at sort of a map of Florida and they're like, well, I mean, everybody lives right by the coast, so it can't be that,
Yeah,
it
right.
can't take long to get around. But like, try going in Broward County from the barrier island to like Sawgrass. It's gonna take you all day to get there.
And then if you hit a bridge or something. But listen, people moving to Florida for a lifestyle, right? They're moving to Florida because they want the sun, they want the fun, they want the beach, they want to be able to get out at 6:30 in the morning and go, shoot 8 holes, 9 holes, right?
Right.
They want to be able to play a little golf. They want to,
Or go bike Key
or,
Biscayne, like
or
you
go
said.
or go biking. So hey, you're a cyclist. Well, Key Biscayne is really the mecca of cycling.
Big time.
Generally, I like to put people 5 miles from the key. 5 miles is a good warm up.
Yeah.
So if you're a cyclist, that's where you want to be.
Yep.
If you're a scuba diver, I'm also a scuba instructor. You like diving. Well, how far do you want to drive to get to the boat? These are the
Sure.
three best boats, commercial dive boats to dive off of. Here's Palm Beach, here's Fort Lauderdale, here's Miami. So,
Right.
you know,
Or if you want to do it yourself, we'll find you something that's got some water right in your
we have
backyard.
some good boat brokers out there. We can set you up with a boat.
For sure, for sure. It's funny that we're talking about biking here. I remember going to the Miami Open for the first time, and the drive to get there, there must have been 10,000 people on bikes that were like and they were going as fast as my car was. just whipping down.
I was out there this morning. That's key. So Key Biscayne is definitely the mecca for cycling in South Florida. So we have some group rides which are legendary around the world. It's some of the fastest group rides, some of the fastest hour you'll spend on a bicycle.
Really?
It's incredible. Well, we have no hills here. We have well,
Sure.
we have the bridge that goes up Key Biscayne, which we
Right.
call like Mount Rickenbacker, you know. Um, but we have some of the fastest riding because we don't have any hills. So, a lot of people come from, Colorado, come from California, come from Colombia, and they're used to riding uphill. We have just flat roads where it's just, all power all morning.
So you were talking off before we got on here off camera. You get up at 5:30 in the morning to train every morning. Um, Obviously, physical discipline is something that is, I think, part of the Serhant nature. You already had that in you, but I mean, people who are high performing, we don't sleep in. I mean, you're up at the crack of dawn or sometimes before every morning. How do those high performance habits really translate into your business and being as successful as you are?
I mean, you don't show up to a bike race and expect to win without the preparation,
Right.
right? So it's all that training, it's all that you do leading up to the actual race. So, being prepared going into a listing presentation with all the comps in your head, going into a showing, knowing all the details about that house. So it's about preparation.
Sure.
That's really, I go back to this. Somebody told me really early on in my career, they're the 5 Ps. Proper planning prevents poor performance. So I kind of live my life like that.
Okay.
And I'm somewhat neurotic in the sense of I analyze, I was running a little late today. Before I knew I was gonna be late, I said, hey, I may be 15 minutes late. So the planning for me is what's really important.
Let me ask you a question on that thread. Proper planning prevents poor performance. If you were going on a listing appointment with to list your best friend's house or a family member's house, are you giving them the exact same listing presentation that you would give any other customer?
I have my best friend's house. So
Okay.
there's 3 of us. It's me, Gus, and Eddie, right?
Yeah.
It's we're the 3 musketeers. So I'm listing Eddie's house right now.
Okay.
$6.5 million on Belmead, beautiful home. You get the same out of me. Whether you're my best friend or you're just somebody I met, you get everything I give
So
everybody.
you're not just walking in with your listing agreement saying, "Here,
No,
sign here."
it wasn't it was well, it's not that easy.
No, it's not.
If anything, it's more difficult,
I've told
you
this
know.
story several times with the agents in my office just to make sure that nobody ever makes the same mistake that I did. But I walked into my friend's house thinking, let's just sign this thing up. I know exactly what your house is worth. We're going to get it on the market. I'm going to market the hell out of it and we're going to get it sold. And I did not get the listing because they said, you know what? We were interviewing just to see, what was out there. And you were the only person that didn't come fully prepared with the, listing presentation and all the, the glitz and glam and all that kind of stuff. And we just couldn't do it. And I was like, I was blown away. This was really, really, really early on in my career. I was blown away, and I've always held that with me. Like, no matter who you are, you've got to get the exact same presentation as anybody else.
Yes and no, because you also have to tailor to the client as well.
True.
So Ryan says like billionaires, you get one word answers out of them, right? They don't have time to read a whole paragraph of stuff. They want the consolidated, condensed version of whatever
Yeah.
is really
Cliff
important.
notes.
So it's like funny. I'll text Ryan some information about a listing or something we have, and he'll be like, "Great." I'm like, "Yes, I got a response from him." He'll send an emoji, a thumbs up emoji. Well, the guy gets 75,000 emails a day. He does. He has a team of people that review his things. So when you get a response from him, it's a response, right?
Right.
So the person and it's emotion, like I said earlier, right? Dealing with the person is how you have to tailor your presentation,
Yep.
your character when you're on the
Yep.
listing. If I'm going on a listing with a bunch of 25-year-old crypto multimillionaires, I'm a little bit different than if I'm going on a listing appointment or I'm going on a showing with a 60-year-old retired physician who's worth, God knows how much. So you tend to modify your personality and what you're doing, but you always give the same level of service.
I had that 25-year-old multimillionaire crypto dude. They're weird people. It was very hard to, like, read, and I'm like, "Give me something." Like, yeah, how can I help you?
We're also older, right? So it's
Yeah.
not like, yeah, no cap, or like, these terms that, that I'm not necessarily familiar
Sure,
with,
sure.
but you kind of have to educate yourself and you have to know what you're going into, like I hate to say this, but like I was with a young bachelor guy and I was like, this is totally a panty dropper pad. He was like, yeah, it is, isn't it? I'm like, you know, that's what I had to use. I would have never said an expression like that in front of an older,
Sure.
older married man,
Of course,
you
of
know.
course.
But if I see that you have kids, I'm like, tell me that isn't the best place for a swing set. I mean, realistically,
Absolutely.
can you imagine your daughter's playing on that swing set? So yeah, you have to be a chameleon.
Yeah. Yeah, and you've gotta play to the right emotions. Well, what is it like we just started off this whole thing talking about, like, what is it that that person is lacking in their lifestyle that we could provide for them, and figure out what that is and show them exactly how you're gonna be able to change their life if they move into this house.
Hospitality,
Hospitality.
hospitality.
So, you've proven that you don't need to have a traditional real estate background. I mean, last podcast, we talked to Chris Nakotra. This guy's like grandfather was in commercial real estate, father was in commercial real estate, sisters, brothers, everybody, the whole family is in commercial real estate. And he was sitting at closing tables when he was 10 years old. You came from a completely different background, that hospitality background, and are really proving to the real estate community that you don't need to be that traditional that traditional career path to see yourself in an incredibly successful real estate career.
Service with a smile.
So, service with-
Service with a smile.
yeah,
So it's not difficult.
no,
Anybody can do it if they really put their mind to it.
yeah,
But it's like anything else, if you educate yourself, if you study the industry, if
yeah,
you have a passion for it. When I was a small kid, I wanted to be an architect. I wasn't smart enough in math back. This is before CAD. So I definitely didn't do that. But I had at a young age, I had a passion for homes, for design, for building.
sure.
So, I I kinda morphed that into eventually one day becoming a realtor, but I knew that at some point the hospitality was gonna get old and I needed to figure out a way to employ that skill set into something else.
Fantastic. Well, you're absolutely killing it. Obviously, learn the skills that you need in order to work with people, and that's the most important part of this career is being able to understand people's wants and needs, and making it happen. Last question, and I'll let you get back to selling some beautiful homes. But if you could go back and tell yourself one thing before your first year in real estate, knowing everything that you know now, what would it be?
Wow. If I had to go back and tell myself one thing, it would be invest in yourself.
Okay.
So, and expanding on that, the first big check that I made was over $200,000, right? That was handed to me. I have a picture of it. I made a photocopy of the check. It sits in a frame. And I didn't take any of that money and reinvest in myself. So, advertising,
Yeah.
whether it's social media production, anything like that, I never did that. I consistently relied on that referral source, which has gotten me to where I am today.
Hmm.
But if I would have reinvested in myself, how much further would I have been? So now I do that. I get checks. I have a separate, I have a budget for marketing. I have a budget for everything I need.
Right.
But that's what I would tell myself is make sure you set some money aside to reinvest in yourself.
Excellent, excellent advice. My advice to myself would have been buy as many properties in 2019 as you possibly can.
Yeah, and listen, everybody has that story about the building in Wynwood that was offered at
Yeah.
500,000 and they just sold it for 10 million.
Yeah.
Listen, we all tell ourselves if we could have, if we would have,
Yeah.
where would we be? So
Yeah.
invest in yourself, whether it's buying something for your future or, setting a path.
Yeah. Definitely invest in your business. I think people forget that we're the CEOs of our own little companies.
We are.
Well, Jason, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us. Hopefully, we've inspired some of our members to change the way that they're doing things. You certainly have a fantastic story, but thank you for being with us. And for
Thank
all
you.
you that are listening and watching, we will see you right back here next Friday, 8 a.m. on RWorld Talk.